The Mother of Dragons has arrived. That's right, the Breaker of Chains, Khaleesi, Daenerys. So you know what that means.
Dracarys.
Welcome to the Extreme Channel. My name is Mr. X, and today we're doing an in-depth review of this Daenerys piece from Prime One Studios. That's right, Prime One Studios is a manufacturer. They did this in collaboration with a company called Blitzway that specializes in movie pieces. Now, Game of Thrones, which is what this is from an HBO series that had 8 seasons that was really popularized in the 21st century. Now, keep in mind, we're still living in the 21st century, and for so many reasons, it was just a badass. One of the biggest reasons it was a badass was because of this character, Daenerys Targaryen, who had a claim to the throne, hence the name of the series, Game of Thrones, and she's sitting in a throne here. She was a character moviegoers, including myself, just absolutely fell in love with because, like I said, she just embodied badassery. Check it out.
Zadrizes buzdaris kosda. Nigei Daenerys cel masmo en Targaryen entra. Dove gevi? Axios entas, mentios entas. Dracarys.
So even after the 8th and final season, which was a very controversial and arguably not so good season that a lot of people just didn't love, tons of collectibles have came out regarding Game of Thrones. And this is one of the most anticipated one for Game of Thrones fans, including myself. If you guys look behind me, I love throne statues. So I've had a place reserved for her for quite a while. She's actually going to go a little bit lower, so you won't see her back there. But I'm just ecstatic to have her in my collection. Now, she is what we call 1/4 scale. So if this was in real life, it would be 4 times bigger. So I'm speculating this is somewhere around Season 3 or Season 4. I've only watched the Game of Thrones once, so I may be a little bit off on that, but it's probably near where you saw that scene from. So today we're going to do an in-depth review of this amazing piece. However, before we do that, we are probably less than a day away from this giveaway. Check it out. As a thank you to you guys, we're giving away these 2 exclusive Mortal Kombat statues from Pop Culture Shock Toys. We've already given away this Sub-Zero. It's being shipped to the winner of the 15,000 sub giveaway. Up for grabs at 17,500 subs is this exclusive Scorpion statue. First thing you need to do is make sure you've liked this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Second thing is we are going to pick random videos. This is one of those random videos, and insert this segment somewhere. You need to make sure you comment on that video. We are going to pick a random comment from one of said videos, and you will be the winner of this Scorpion statue. Now let's kick it off with the concept of this piece. And if memory serves me correctly, this is either directly taken from one of the seasons or just kind of their own interpretation of it, where she was actually kind of establishing herself as a queen. And she'd always sit in her throne chair with her dragons around her. And besides her commanding personality, the dragons were really a source of her power. She had dragon blood in her. She couldn't be burned. However, they did whatever she said. And dragons were one of the most powerful weapons, if not the most powerful weapon in Game of Thrones. But let's check out this piece. So you have a giant, monstrous base. At the front, you do have an optional displayable nameplate. I'm just showing it for the review. I actually will not have it in there when I eventually display this where it's supposed to go. A little bit of ornate design. And what I really like about this throne room that she's in is it's not super high fancy. So it's not like what you would see from King's Landing or some of the other people that were claiming to be the throne. So it's somewhere kind of in between. You have some golden stuff. She's sitting on kind of a big cushion, which I'd imagine if you sat your ass down all day on a throne, that eventually your ass would hurt. And they probably didn't have treatments for hemorrhoids and stuff like that back in the day. Her classic long white flowing dress is right there. This statue is a mix between what we call mixed media or fabric and sculpted. Blitzway typically does that with a lot of their pieces. And she is looking to her subjects or her kingdom with a very serious face, but it's also not mean. It just looks like she's very content, very powerful. Her 3 dragons are around her, guarding her, kind of looking at her. One of the things you're going to notice is Drogon, her most popular dragon. I would have kind of liked that up top because he was her final dragon. He was also the one that stole most of the show. But I like what they did. He's actually sitting next to her and looking at her because she had the strongest relationship with him. So I think that was pretty cool. Huge dragon symbol. I think that's from her actual house, the House of Targaryen in the back. And then, of course, the other dragon sitting on top. And in my opinion, it's just an immaculate piece. It tells a lot of the story of Game of Thrones. Obviously, the size that it takes up is quite a bit, even though it is just 1/4 scale. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't think I would dislike it, but I am really digging the presence of this piece and just how it tells that story. It is pretty incredible. So I actually give the concept a 5 out of 5 on this piece. I think they did it awesome. You know, it's like everyone wants a big Drogon, and I do have a big Drogon statue. You can actually check out this review right here. And I love a lot of what they did with this story. I think Emilia Clarke, I think that's the actress name, she did an amazing job, which really surprised me because some of her other roles I wasn't a huge fan of. And before we move on to the next category, a little bit of trivia that's always bothered me. So arguably, her arch enemy in the series was actually Cersei. So Cersei was trying to claim the throne as well. She came from the rich part of town. Daenerys kind of came from the poor part. Her father used to be in power, but then she was outcast. Did you know that they both played Sarah Connor in Terminator? That's right. In Terminator Genisys, Emilia Clarke played Sarah Connor. Then in the old Sarah Connor Chronicles series, Lena Headey, who played Cersei, actually played Sarah Connor as well. Kind of crazy. So either I just blew your mind or wasted your time. Moving on to design of this piece, I think let's first start off with the unboxing and assembly because there was some crazy stuff going on. Check it out. 3 huge boxes, which was really surprising for a 1/4 scale piece. And I know some other collectors had some damages, so they extra packed it with extra foam and bubble wrap. There were 3 different art boxes, and the art boxes had stuff on both the front and the back. So that was kind of impressive to me. I think they spent a lot of money on the packaging. I would have rather had cheap packaging as long as it got here safe without all this extra crap. So it was your standard Blitzway with the straps. This is the first box. It had the 3 dragons in it, which were all packed very well. Second one had the base. Now underneath this is the pole for the back. I actually repacked it up without finding that pole because it was hidden. And then the rest of the pieces for the base. So as you saw, I did have a breakage. When I was putting this dragon on, one of his claws or talons actually broke off. The reason for that is the keys that they go in didn't line up because temperature fluctuations. They are somewhat malleable, so it was my fault. However, it was a clean break and I glued it back on and you can't even see it anymore, so I'm not going to lose sleep over that. It is unfortunate. You saw the packing. It was actually, as I said, pretty good. I did have a little bit of paint issue. And I think it's also on the underside of this guy too. So I'm actually pretty impressed. This came from China in 3 different boxes, and really there weren't any significant issues. There are no switch out options. What you see is what you get. However, let's measure this because it is huge. So the widest point is probably the base. And then Drogon's wing sticks out a tiny, tiny bit. A little over 24.5 inches. So you're going to need a lot of room. Deepest part of the base itself is about 17, 18 inches. And then this dragon, as you can see, he sticks out in the back a little bit more, significantly more actually. Now the tallest point, this is what I'm really worried about. I don't think it's going to fit where I want to put it.
Hey, that's what she said.
It's a little bit hard to measure this because it's bigger than I thought it'd be.
That's what she said.
I believe it's between 25 and 26 inches. If you want to know exact dimensions, go ahead and go to Prime One Studios or Sideshow's website. They distributed this. I actually got this through Spec Fiction. So with design, 2 more things I want to talk about, and they both have to do with the portrait. First of all, the portrait actually comes off. However, they were able to use her necklace to cover up that seam line, so that was very intelligent. Second thing is, this is where I want to talk about the likeness of the character. There was a lot of controversy over this. When they first did the initial reveals, it looked good. Then they had some on display, and I really questioned it. And in my opinion, it ended up being somewhere right in between. Here's a close-up, and we'll look at this more in paint and sculpt. Certain angles, it does look like her. Certain angles, it looks about 85% like her. So it's kind of a hit and miss. It kind of depends which angle you're looking at. And I'll show you that when we look at the paint and sculpt. We'll kind of do video of it. But I think that needs to be considered. So I don't think the design's perfect because the likeness is not 100%. Which is interesting because Blitzway, who they collaborated with it to do this, usually is as close as you can get to likeness on a movie piece. There's a few other things, like I think there's a lot of wasted space, and you know, as collectors, space is our enemy, as well as boxes. Boxes are a freaking enemy too, and you gave me 3 of them for this. But I'm going to give the design a 3 out of 5. It's not bad, but it's not good. Now we're going to rate the paint and sculpt. We'll look at them together and then kind of grade them separate at the end, but here's a video of that. All right, so a lot to cover on this. Let's start with the base. The base is probably the weakest part, but it's not bad. Like I said, this gold ornate design looks all right. It's not a super bright gold, which I appreciate because, like I said, this storyline is more when she's not into complete power yet. I guess she never gets into complete power, but I don't know if this is supposed to be concrete around it. It looks fine. The colors are fine. The floorboards look better, I think. There's a little bit of a hint of green in there along with the blacks and the browns, which I don't know if I like or not. So really quick, her dress here seems like higher quality fabric, which is nice. One of the things I want to show you, the nameplate, here's the nameplate up close. Looks great. Smudge is really easy, unfortunately. But her feet, not that you'll ever show these, but the print didn't come out in between the toes well. So definitely not a fan. This is really the weakest part of the statue. But keep in mind, her feet would be dirty and probably wouldn't be perfectly painted toenails at that time. So I don't know if that was intentional or just bad quality. See that there? But I intend to keep it covered up, so that's not really a huge bother to me. Her table's right here again. This is kind of to give it a little bit more of a, hey, I am in charge of an army. I do have some power right now. I believe at the time she was in charge of that city where the Unsullied came from. And again, some really intricate design in the sculpt here. And I like how the paint gives a little bit of age. Very similar here in the treasure chest she had. The colors just pop. Now one thing, I believe this cushion is fabric. It feels like fabric. It's very tight. It's wrapped around the seat. So it's well done. It could be sculpted too, but the feeling is more of kind of like a suede. But the rest of this is fully sculpted, and it does look like an actual fabric cushioned chair. And this is very hard as well. Actually, you can knock on it, but it looks like you could just sink right in. So fantastic job by Prime 1 and Blitzway for the realism on that. Let's look at the dragons really quick. Now, they're younger, so you don't see as much like of the scale pattern in their skins, which I think could have been done better. It says high gloss on the back here, which I'm not a huge fan of. But again, this will be the back of it, so you traditionally won't see that. I think they got the colors right. One of the things as we go through, you see the paint is incredibly clean. They did a really nice job on the paint. Even here on the back, so this is where the pedestal that holds the dragon, and you never really see this, but the post he's on looks real. The ties could have been better, but you don't really see those. Some really good detail just all over the place here. Here's a little more scales on the skin of the dragon, but not really back here. I'm surprised none of these spikes actually broke. I was sure there would be something. The colors of the dragon, I don't know how accurate they are, so I'd have to go back and watch. And a lot of it depends on the lighting. I have this bright studio lighting on this that makes it look a lot brighter than it really is, especially through the camera right here. But even look how clean the detail is in the dragons and the paint. The teeth up here, I think they did a really, really nice job on all that. And here's that symbol in the back. Like I said, I believe it's from her house. I could be wrong. And the variation of colors just do a great job with this piece to make it pop. So sculpt on her fingers could have been a little bit better. I like the skin tone they used. I think it's very accurate. That's one thing that they could have really missed on if they messed that up. Her belt is sculpted right there, a lot of detail in that. And there's her hands. A little bit of veins, and I do like how they did the colorization on the knuckles. So let's look at her portrait. This is like where I said from different angles, you kind of get a different likeness. Now, one thing you'll notice on the portrait, the paint job is immaculate. The lips and the eyes and the eyebrows, they did a fantastic job, even the small moles. And as I move it back and forth, this is really what I was talking about with the likeness. A few of the angles you can see it's like, yeah, that's spot on for her. And then a few of them, it's close, but not quite. Hair looks great. She always had this long flowing bound up hair. They did a nice job with that. Has a little bit too much of a waxy effect for me, or a reflective. So I think that's a little bit of a miss, but nothing I'm gonna lose sleep over. So really just a ton going on this piece. Tried to do a brief overview of covering as much as I could for you guys, but the paint is incredibly impressive. The sculpt's pretty damn good too, so. I really like the paint on this piece. I think they did an immaculate job. It's really clean, which is really traditional with Blitzway, and just it flows together really, really well. Even when you look at the portrait, even though I think the likeness is a little bit off, the detail like in the teeth of the dragons, I think the paint's a 5 out of 5. For a factory production piece with all this different stuff going on, it is very impressive. Sculpt, for the most part, as you saw, is pretty good. The few minor things, Khaleesi's hands and especially her feet, are a big miss, but you can cover up her feet with this. And as I said, I do like the fabric on this. I like the ornate designs. The dragons could have been a little bit more detailed, I think. I would have liked more of that scaly effect, as I said. But I still think with so much going on, I still think the sculpt's a 4 out of 5. I think it's above average. And when you talk about a statue, a 3 out of 5 being average, that's still a good score because you expect a statue that costs this much money to be at least good when you talk about average, which probably just confused the hell out of you. But let's just talk about value now. So value on this piece, they made 1,200 of them, and it cost $1,200, ironically. So yeah, that's like 1.44 million, I believe, if you do the math. But obviously they have to pay for licensing and then production. You get a lot. So a typical 1/4 piece from Prime One Studios used to be about $600-700. Nowadays they're around $1,000 or $1,200. And there's, in my opinion, this is kind of a diorama. You get more than one piece. It takes up a lot of space. I don't know how expensive the license is for Game of Thrones, but I would assume it's more expensive than most pieces. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I think this is one of the coolest Game of Thrones pieces out there. So I think this will be highly sought after. Like I said, this presence is just kind of amazing. And I think they might even be making some prequels or some spin-offs. So I think the value will hold on this. And 1,200, honestly, in a world that, there's probably over 100 million followers of this show, I think is pretty decent. So I think the value is a 4 out of 5. I just worry if I ever had to reship it, would I be able to secure it as well as they did? So does this have the X factor? Now, when we talk about the final score, is this a 5 out of 5 statue? We don't base it off the other categories. We just look at this and say, wow, when I walk by, is that cool as hell? I think it is. I don't think Mrs. X will let me keep this upstairs, but I think this is almost a piece that doesn't mix in with the other thrones. I think it's a lot cooler than those. I definitely need to figure out where I'm going to put it. For now, I just might put it up next to Apocalypse because it's too tall to fit where I was going to put it. But I think this is a 5 out of 5 statue. I'm really impressed with this. I wish the likeness was a little bit better, but like I said, certain angles definitely does not look like it. It looks like a museum piece, especially with the nameplate. This might be one piece I actually keep the nameplate on there now that I think about it. But thanks for tuning in, guys. If you haven't liked this video, and then make sure you subscribe to the channel because tons of stuff arrive like this. Almost every other day we drop video, if not more often. Check out some of these other videos. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.